It was one of those sunny afternoons in the little town of Oak Ridge, where everything feels sleepy and familiar until it doesn't. I remember hearing about it from my buddy who works at the local diner. How this quiet math teacher named Alex Rivera got jumped right on Maple Street by a crew of 4 roughnecks. All because he'd spoken up against their boss's shady land grab at the town meeting the week before. These guys weren't just random thugs, they were tied to a local developer, Harlan Voss, who'd been pushing to bulldoze the old community park for some fancy condos, and Alex, being the stand-up guy he is, had rallied folks to fight it, hitting Harlan right where it hurt, his wallet. Anyway, there Alex was, backed against the wall of the old pharmacy, these 4 goons circling him like wolves, their fists clenched, faces twisted with that kind of petty rage you get when someone's exposed your greed. "You think you're some hero, Teach?" one of them snarled, shoving him hard enough to make his glasses crack against the bricks. Yeah, it was personal. Harlan had probably whispered in their ears about how Alex was the thorn blocking his big payout, stirring up old grudges from when these guys grew up in Oak Ridge and felt entitled to every scrap of land. The crowd just froze, pulling out phones like spectators at a bad street fight. Nobody stepping in because, well, fear's a funny thing, it glues your feet to the pavement. But then, out of nowhere, Sarah Jenkins, this spunky waitress from Betty's Diner, still in her grease-stained apron from the lunch shift, comes barreling across the street, dropping her purse mid-stride, her heart pounding like she'd just seen her own kin in trouble. She didn't know Alex all that well, just enough from serving him his usual black coffee and blueberry muffin every morning, where he'd sit grading papers with that focused look, always tipping extra and asking about her day like he actually cared. Sarah had her own scars from life. You see, growing up in a trailer park on the edge of town, watching her mom get pushed around by folks like Harlan who thought money gave them the right to stomp on the little guy. So when she saw Alex cornered, something inside her snapped, that deep-seated fire against bullies who hide behind power and payoffs. She shoved her way into the fray, planting herself right in front of Alex, arms spread wide like a human shield. "Back off, you cowards," she yelled, her voice cracking but fierce, staring down the biggest one who laughed in her face. He thought it was hilarious, this tiny woman in an apron thinking she could play hero. "This ain't your business, sweetheart, move, or you'll get what's coming to him," he growled. But Sarah didn't budge, her mind racing with flashes of her mom's bruises from years ago, fueling her resolve. The first punch landed on her shoulder, sharp and burning, staggering her, but she gritted her teeth. "Run, Alex, just go," she gasped, trying to push him away even as another blow hit her ribs, the pain exploding like fire. Yet she held on, whispering through clenched teeth, "They don't get to win this one. Not today." Alex tried to pull her back, horrified, yelling, "Sarah, no, get behind me." But she shoved him harder, taking hit after hit, her knees buckling as the crowd gasped, the world blurring around her. And just when it felt like the end, her body slumping against him, that's when the rumble started, deep, earth-shaking, like thunder rolling in from the hills. 45 Iron Wolves bikers, engines roaring, surged into the square, chrome flashing under the sun, forming a wall of leather and steel that made those thugs freeze mid-swing. These weren't your Hollywood villains. The Iron Wolves had their own code, born from years of being outcasts in Oak Ridge, where folks like Harlan had tried to run them out of town for ruining property values. But they'd stuck around, quietly helping locals when the law looked the other way, and word had spread fast about Sarah's stand, hitting close to home for their leader, Jack's Harlano relation to the developer, ironic, huh? Who'd lost his sister to a similar land dispute years back. The bikes cut off in unison, that sudden silence heavier than any shout, and every phone in the crowd flickered black screens dead, like some invisible force decided this moment wasn't for viral fame, but for raw, unfiltered justice. Jax dismounted first, his boots crunching gravel, eyes locked on the scene, and the thugs scattered like roaches, mumbling excuses, but not before Jax's low voice cut through. "You touch family. You deal with us, and she's family now." Sarah, barely conscious on the ground, felt Alex's arms around her, his voice trembling with guilt. "Why'd you do that?" "It was my fight," and she managed a weak smile. "Because fights like this, they're everybody's, aren't they?" In the hospital later, Sarah drifted in and out, the The beeps and antiseptic smell mixing with the ache in her bones. Doctors said she'd cracked ribs, bruised everything. The kind of damage that lingers, reminds you of your limits. Alex sat there every day, flowers in hand, replaying it all, blaming himself for dragging her in. But Sarah, even through the pain meds, waved it off. Hey, if I hadn't, who'd make sure you get your muffin right? She'd joke faintly, hiding the deeper stuff, like how stepping in made her feel alive for the first time since her mom's passing, reclaiming some power from a world that had taken so much. The town buzzed, whispers about the bikers' arrival fueling theories. Was it a hack on the cameras? Harlan pulling strings to cover his tracks? But the police chief downplayed it all. Minor scuffle, folks nothing to see. His eyes shifting, probably because Harlan donated big to the department, that old corruption simmering under Oak Ridge's quaint facade. Then Jack showed up at her bedside one evening, his massive frame filling the door, helmet under arm, that silver-streaked hair and piercing gaze making the nurses pause. He didn't mince words. You didn't have to jump in like that, he rumbled, and Sarah, propping herself up despite the wince, shot back with a grin. Neither did you and your crew. Guess we're both suckers for lost causes. He nodded, a rare smile cracking, explaining how her act echoed his sister's stand against a developer like Harlan, who back then had gotten away with it. Leaving scars on the club now, seeing Sarah bleed for a stranger, it stirred that old loyalty, turning her into one of them without a patch. Words out, he said. Your under our wing family doesn't fight alone. And as he left, Sarah felt a mix of awe and fear, whispering to Alex, what have I started? The bikers rallied that night at their clubhouse on the outskirts. Jack's addressing the group under flickering lights. This woman's got no bike, no colors, but she stood tall against Harlan's puppets. Took the hits meant for a guy fighting the same greed that tried to bury us. We answer that. Murmurs turned to nods, fists clenched, and by dawn, those 45 wolves rolled back into town, engines thundering then silencing at the courthouse where Harlan's boys faced charges. Cameras died again, batteries drained, screens frozen as the riders lined up, silent sentinels, their presence a quiet storm that made reporters curse and officials sweat. Inside, during the hearing, Sarah testified from her wheelchair, voice steady despite the pain. I saw Alex trapped, those fists flying because he dared call out Harlan's land grab, stealing our park for profits, twisting arms with his HOA cronies, and I couldn't watch. I just couldn't. The defense lawyer sneered. You escalated it. Ms. Jenkins provoked them by interfering in a private dispute. But she fired back, eyes flashing. If protecting someone from a beating is provocation, then guilty is charged and I'd do it again. You slimy suit. Alex followed, his words breaking. She saved me. Took what was mine because I challenged a bully who's been buying up Oak Ridge like it's his playground. The wolves in the gallery didn't flinch, their silence deafening, pressuring the judge who knew Harlan's influence but felt the shift to rule for trial. Defendants locked up. The town shifted after that. Flowers at the diner, notes from kids Alex taught. You both matter. But whispers grew. Was this justice or vigilante pressure? Harlan fumed in his office, plotting appeals, his ego bruised by a waitress and outcasts exposing his grip. Weeks later, verdict day hit like a storm, guilty on all counts. The courtroom exhaling as the gavel cracked, Sarah squeezing Alex's hand, tears mixing with relief. The wolves rose silently, filing out, but not before Jax leaned in. Told you family wins. Outside, the procession formed for Sarah's release, 45 bikes flanking the hospital drive, riders saluting as she wheeled out, engines purring low, then roaring as they escorted her home through cheering streets, folks saluting, kids waving, even old rivals nodding respect. Sarah, in the van at the heart of it, closed her eyes, feeling the wind, the bond from lone fighter to unbreakable pack. But here's where it gets tricky, you know? That silence, that power the wolves wielded, did it bend justice? Or just level the field against Harlan's money? Some say it was intimidation, crossing lines. Others, it was the only way to fight fire with fire in a town rigged for the rich. Makes you wonder about community. Right when the law falters, do everyday heroes and unlikely allies step in? Or does it just breed more chaos? Drop a comment below. Would you have jumped in like Sarah? Is the biker's silence true justice or vigilante overreach? Share your take. Hit that like if this hit home. Subscribe for more real tales of grit and loyalty because stories like this remind us. Sometimes the quietest stand echoes the loudest.